Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion,
I'm Scint.
and we are playing Pokemon Christmas and about to start discussing Terry Pratchett's Hogfather. But first, there's a little bookkeeping we need to do.
Yeah. So, it's kind of a joke sometimes that people will say, so I told you that story so I can tell you this story. Well, we mentioned before that sometimes you don't need to have read the books to just jump in, but it helps. We're gonna helps. So, as we mentioned, Hogfather is a part of the Death sub-series of Discworld, which, as you'd expect, follows literally the Grim Reaper. It is the fourth in the series because, we have Mort, where Death takes an apprentice, named, fittingly, Mort. We have Reaper Man. We have Soul Music, which introduces Mort's daughter, Susan, so Death's adopted granddaughter, effectively, who has inherited some of his supernatural abilities. Because genetics in Discworld are funny.
Genetics are kind of a suggestion in a world of magic.
As long as you get all the recessive ones.
Oh dear.
Yes.
I know where you're going with that.
Slowly insane. But yeah, so this is important because in Hogfather, Susan is essentially playing number 2 to Death's plan. Reluctantly. Susan would very much like to not have all of these weird supernatural powers so she can just have a normal life and a normal job and not be dragged into being the substitute Grim Reaper whenever Death gets it in his head to go pick up a new hobby or something.
There are a small handful of supporting characters that are strongly associated with Death and, to an extension, Susan. Or, as an extension of that, Susan. We mentioned Mort, her dad, who is no longer around as of the time of this book. He died between books in an earlier story, along with his wife, Susan's mother, who was the prior Duchess of Sto-helit, another location in the Discworld. And that's where Susan gets her surname of sto-helit and her title.
Which never really comes up besides just to mention that it's there, because Susan doesn't really do any duchessing.
Yep. There are 3 of these, primarily 3 of these supporting characters. The first one is Albert. Albert is Death's manservant. We find out in one of the prior books, I forget which one, I think it was Mort, but I might be misremembering, that Albert is actually Aberlich, or something like that, a famous wizard who helped found the local wizard academy of Ankh-Morpork, the Unseen University.
Alberto Malik, it looks like.
Alberto Malik. I knew Lich was in there somewhere. And, he attempted to cast a spell to make himself immortal, and ended up messing it up and transporting himself to Death's domain.
From what I've seen, just trying to catch up on this, he tried to basically play with magic with this. Like, oh, I can use a summoning spell to summon death to me. So if I read it backwards, it will keep death away from me. Haha. No, it summoned him to death. So he's like, well, I'm here, but my time hasn't run out. So essentially, he has a deal with death where he works for death and doesn't actually have to go to the graveyard.
Yep. And Albert has popped into the world of the living a few times, which has slowly whittled away at the remaining time in his hourglass. As such, by the time of Hogfather, he has only a few minutes of actual life left. The fact that he is running around the living world with death in this story is taking advantage of a particular loophole that we will get into when we start talking about the plot in earnest.
I believe he's out of time also because I think his life timer got broken. It's like the hourglass that Death checks to see if your time has run out.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It has been a while, so... But yeah, he's almost out of time, and we'll have to explain how he's able to help as we get to the course of the plot.
Yep. The second character is... Those of you who love puns, get excited. Those of you who hate puns, prepare to groan. Quoth the Raven. This is a talking raven who has become associated with Death and Susan through prior shenanigans. He is sardonic, rambly, loudmouthed, and really likes eyeballs.
Is there any character here that is not sardonic besides Death?
I'm sure there's some.
Just of those we've mentioned so far, Susan is snarky, Albert is snarky, the Raven is snarky, the Death of Rats is squeaky.
And that brings us to the third person in this particular group, the Death of Rats.
Squeak!
The Death of Rats is a skeletal rat in a tiny hood with a tiny scythe who reaps the souls of rodents. He came into existence during Reaper Man, where Death kind of broke, and so in Reaper Man, to make a very, very long story short, Death decided to retire for a little while. And as a result of this, since things obviously still need to die, a bunch of little deaths started popping up. Bye, Albert.
Yep. So, Death obviously gets fixed since there are more Death books, but he likes Death of Rats and keeps them around.
Well, it's also, when Death got back to being quote-unquote normal, retook his job, and got rid of the new Death that had replaced him, he reabsorbed all of the little deaths back into himself.
Except the Death of Rats.
Yeah, the Death of Rats did not want to be reabsorbed. It had developed a uniqueness to itself that it did not wish to surrender. So Death permitted the Death of Rats to continue to exist, and now he's running around reaping rats and gerbils and mice and other rodents.
Oh, is that why he was on my computer? Because I have a computer mouse.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Did you hear that, Albert? It was a pun or a play on words.
Those are the characters that are strictly tied to the Death series that are present in this particular story, though both the Death of Rats and Death himself make occasional cameos in other series, Death obviously a little more than the Rat, and I do believe Quoth shows up in a couple of other things. The other character that is recurring from other... The other characters that are recurring from other sources that are important to this story is the Wizards of Unseen University.
Who are special. Who are very special.
So the thing about the Wizards is... Well, one, they're very special. They are interesting personalities, but most of them aren't referred to by name. They are instead referred to by the title of their position on the board of leadership for the school. The school faculty, yeah. So...
Except for two of them I can think of.
Yeah. Like I said, there are exceptions.
Yeah.
So most of them are referred to with titles like the Bursar, the Lecturer in Recent Runes.
The Librarian.
The Librarian is a special case. He was a wizard who, through the use of a spell, I cannot remember if it was intentional or not, or a screw-up, transformed himself into an orangutan. Do not call him a monkey. He does not like to be called a monkey, and being an orangutan, he responds with violence.
Ook. See, the Bursar, the poor Bursar, who was frequently described as being a very, very boring man, surrounded by the weirdest possible people. Like, I believe Hogfather expressly refers to him as a man to whom excitement once meant a soft-boiled egg. Is constantly just frayed nerves and on excessive medication to help curb that.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the Arch-Chancellor is the worst possible personality you put with someone like that.
So
Mustrum Ridcully.
Yeah, the Arch-Chancellor, Ridcully, is one of the few wizards who is named. And he is what happens when you take a Dungeons & Dragons adventuring wizard and put him in charge of a school full of sit in my tower and do nothing but study, or pursue my really niche, esoteric hobby interest wizards. Ridcully is a big, brawny man, a little bit on the overweight side, who is just as likely to run up and punch a problem as he is to solve it with magic.
I was gonna say, he's if Zap Brannigan was voiced by Brian Blessed.
Oh my word, that is a beautiful, beautiful description. I love that. Yes, if Zap Brannigan was voiced by Brian Blessed and was a wizard, that is a glorious description. I'm gonna save that. The other character of importance, or one of the other characters of importance among the wizards, is Hex.
We should probably talk about the wizard who helped develop Hex as well.
Right, remind me his name.
Ponder Stibbins.
Right, Stibbins.
Who basically gets all of the crap jobs lumped onto him, so he doesn't really have a title so much as a collection of responsibilities. He's essentially the magic IT physics department.
Yeah, to a very literal extent. Stibbons created Hex. Hex is a magical computer. It is a big system of pipes and chambers and esoteric phenomena, anthills, a mouse on a wheel, a set of instruments, and a automatic writing pad that spits out the information that it has calculated. Hex, being a magical creation, often behaves in unusual ways. And some of those unusual ways become relevant in this story.
We also need to talk about another player in the game, the Assassin's Guild.
So, the city of Morpork, where this particular story is mostly set and where several of Discworld stories take place, is organized by the ruler of Ankh-Morpork, the patrician Havelock Vetinari. And Vetinari is a man who prizes one thing above all other things, and that is efficiency. As such, when he became ruler of the city, he reorganized the entire structure of the city. Right, I did this already. He reorganized the entire structure of the city and made an ultimatum to basically every organization that did anything remotely unlawful. And that ultimatum was, reorganize yourself as a structured, orderly, efficient organization with due... What's the word I'm looking for? Basically, cut me in on it. Pay me a fraction of whatever you make as part of your illicit activities as taxes, and submit proof that you are remaining organized, orderly, and according to code, and you may continue all of your activities completely legally. So, Ankh-Morpork does not have street bandits, it has the Thieves Guild, who will, when they rob you, will give you a receipt, signed, sealed, and delivered. And if you get robbed more than you are due, you are entitled to a refund. One of the other guilds that reorganized in this manner actually existed before Vetinari took over, because he used to be part of it. And that was, as Scint mentioned, the Assassin's Guild.
On the other hand, Vetinari never did graduate because he was a no-show at his stealth exam and therefore failed. I love that so much.
That is one of the best subtle jokes in the series.
But yeah, the Assassin's Guild views themselves as artists rather than people who just kill for money. you have to have a certain style. We have a standard to uphold for the prices we charge. So this is a thing that exists, and they do have a certain flair for how things are meant to go.
Yep. And a part of Veterinary's agreement with all of these organizations is that there is only to be one of them. They are all to be organized, orderly, and structured. Meaning that if someone is running around killing people without a license from the Assassin's Guild, or running around robbing people without a license from the Thieves Guild and handing out Thieves Guild receipts, the guilds can take care of that person on behalf of the authorities and be given every legal right to do so to protect their business.
I'm just reminded right now of the confusion with the Seamstresses Guild. Where there's two Seamstresses Guilds, because one is a euphemism, and there's one person who's living there with the Seamstresses Guild who's an actual seamstress, and gets a lot of business from the confusion of people who don't understand what the euphemism is for. Let's see, there's also, as we mentioned, the City Watch, who it is their job to patrol, egg more pork, and keep things orderly. Because, obviously.
Yep.
And
the relevant members of the City Watch in this particular story,
I believe, are Nabi and Visit.
Yep. Which one of those do you want to take? I'll take the other one.
Constable Visit the Infidel with explanatory pamphlets is a door-to-door Omnian missionary, but instead of he's gone for the more, Jehovah's Witness style conversion than the old school type. They just call him Constable Visit because it's easier.
Yep. The Omnians are the one of the major in-setting religions, and kind of the one that gets used to make fun of and make jokes about really old-fashioned style faith practices that are antiquated by most modern standards. So you have these very Puritan, very Middle English style names that are just a pile of scriptural references. And of course, Visit is known for mixing business with I wouldn't say pleasure in this context. He has, on more than one occasion, been recorded in the story as giving his pamphlets to people that he's in the middle of arresting or questioning or things like that for his job as a member of the Watch.
Sorry, I just wanted to, for a second, interject with examples of these, hortatory names, or slogan names. Nicholas Barbin, aka, if Jesus Christ had not died for thee, thou hadst been damned, Barbin, the son of Praise God, Barbin.
That one's not a Discworld joke. That's a real thing. That was
I learned
real
that
life.
one from Extra History. So yeah, this is the kind of thing that Pratchett is kind of saying, hey yeah, this is silly, at.
And it's wonderful.
And on the other hand, we have Corporal Nobby Knobs.
So Knobs is one of the characters that is introduced as part of the Watch from the get-go. He is in the first Watch book, and every Watch book since. Knobs is of undetermined origin. No one is quite sure if he is a human, a dwarf, a hybrid of the two, a goblin, or something else entirely. He is described as a strangely shaped little man with an odd grin and a strange glint in his eye. Among many, many other descriptors. Nabi is the somewhat stereotypical slack-off. He is known among the Watch for doing everything he can to do as little work as possible.
Gee, I have never encountered that mindset at all in my line of work.
As such, when he is seen doing things for the Watch, he is usually not in any particular hurry, gossiping with whoever happens to be nearby or with whatever partner he's assigned to at the time. Joking around, goofing off, eating, whatever the moment has his fancy. This is not going to be any different in this particular story. I think that's all the recurring characters off the top of my head. Or is there somebody I'm forgetting?
I think those are all the ones who are going to be majorly plot relevant. So, yeah, I think we're at a good place to just move on to talking about the story.
Alright. And that's where we will pick up next time. See you then.
See ya!